It's Armageddon chess at its finest, Gukesh D with the white pieces against Wesley So. The stakes are sky high, and we kick off with a quiet, strategic English opening. We see a very symmetrical start. Pawn to c4 is met by pawn to c5, and both players fianchetto their bishops. It's a mirror image on the board as they develop their knights. Both sides continue to build a solid pawn structure in the center, developing their knights behind the lines. The position remains perfectly balanced as they prepare for the middle game. Development is complete. Both players castle kingside, line up their rooks on the b-file, and bring their bishops and queens into the game. The quiet maneuvering phase begins. Gukesh is the first to break the symmetry, jumping his knight into d5, So immediately challenges on the queen side with pawn to b5, and Gukesh snaps up the pawn, and So plays the absolute best move. Rook takes the pawn on b5. This is the only way to keep the balance. The idea is that if white takes on e7, black recaptures with the knight and the rook is safe. After that skirmish, a phase of repositioning begins. Gukesh brings his knight back and centralizes his rooks and bishop, while Wesley So mirrors the setup. Finally, Gukesh's queen comes to a4, increasing the pressure. What a move from Wesley So, king to f8. It looks so quiet, but this is a brilliant, deep, prophylactic idea. He's preparing to meet any sacrifices on d5 by simply recapturing, keeping his king perfectly safe for a future counterattack. Gukesh accepts the challenge. Knight takes the knight on e7, So recaptures, and white's queen swoops in to capture the pawn on a5. But now, So makes an inaccuracy. This natural-looking developing move, knight to c6, actually allows white to seize a clear advantage. There was a much more subtle idea available. The better plan was bishop out to b3, preparing to push the pawn to a4, after king to g8, and bishop back to g2. Black would be ready to challenge the center with d5. But in the game, So plays the knight back to c6, and the opportunity is gone. And Gukesh immediately capitalizes. The queen swings over to a6, and after So pushes his d-pawn, Gukesh calmly develops his bishop to g2. The white queen lands on b5, causing all sorts of problems, and that is a major mistake from Wesley So. Moving the rook to b8 looks logical, but it walks right into a devastating tactic. He needed to get his king out of the danger zone first. So plays rook to b8, and this allows a crushing blow. Gukesh cashes in immediately. Queen takes the pawn on c5 with check. So blocks with the knight on e7, but white's queen is a monster, dancing between a5 and b5, keeping black's pieces completely tied down as the position simplifies. An inaccuracy from Gukesh. Queen to c5 lets a bit of the pressure off. This gives black a real chance to fight back with the counter-attacking shot bishop out to g4. But Wesley So misses it. He doesn't see the key counterattack and gives the advantage right back. The engine was screaming for a different move. So plays rook to c8, and Gukesh is back in control. The queens continue their dance around the board. Gukesh plays queen to b4, then to c3, which was a small slip. Queen to h4 was stronger, but his position remains dominant as he repositions to b3, So desperately tries to generate counterplay with the pawn break to d4. The queens shuffle back, pawns are exchanged on e3, and after the bishop recaptures, black challenges it immediately by placing his own bishop on d5. A slight inaccuracy from Gukesh. Knight to c3 is a fine move, but simply exchanging bishops on d5 was more precise and would have made the path to victory even clearer. So makes the trade himself, bishop takes the bishop on g2. And Gukesh makes the perfect recapture. King takes the bishop on g2. This is the only move that maintains his huge advantage, activating his king while keeping it perfectly safe. From here, Gukesh plays with perfect technique. The queen comes to f3, the knight jumps to d5, the bishop lands on c5, and he pushes the h-pawn. He's tightening the screws on all sides of the board, and another inaccuracy from So. Rook to a5 puts the rook on an awkward square. He really needed to play rook to a6 to better defend his position. Gukesh responds with knight to b4, but this is also a small slip. He misses the most clinical win, which involved a direct attack with queen to h4. And that is the final decisive mistake. Rook to c8 looks like a normal defensive move, but it walks right into a stunning, game-ending tactic. So plays rook to c8, and Gukesh unleashes a brilliant shot. Brilliant. Bishop to b6. A stunning sacrifice that deflects the black queen and completely shatters black's coordination. This move wins the game on the spot, an incredible find under pressure. The recapture is forced, queen takes the bishop on b6, and now the killer follow-up, rook takes rook on c8, check. The only move, and it is absolutely crushing. Black's king is forced away to h7, and now it's just a matter of technique. Gukesh's queen and rook are completely dominant. He brings the queen to c6, then c4, and the rook joins the attack on c7. Black is helpless. A small slip here. Queen takes pawn on f7. It's still completely winning, of course, but bringing the other rook to c1 would have been even faster, and so, in a lost position, plays rook to a6. This just hastens the end. Queen to d4 would have offered a tiny bit more resistance. And Gukesh ends it. The knight simply takes the rook on a6, and black's position completely collapses. And with that, Wesley So resigns. A hard-fought, complex battle full of twists and turns, but in the end, Gukesh D takes the win with a brilliant late-game tactic, a fantastic victory.